Alright, so let's try to look at complex numbers, and this video is for those who want to cement on complex numbers, you want to understand more. So usually complex numbers are expressed in this form here, that is x plus I y. Sometimes they can be expressed as a plus ib, and in this case here it can be z being equal to a plus ib or z being equal to x plus iy. So this one is the format of complex numbers. Usually this one here is called the real part, meaning this one here is made up of real numbers, for example -2, +4, and so on. And this one here is the imaginary part. For example, the imaginary part, it can be just I, or it can be something like 3i. So this one here is the imaginary part. Apart from this one here, let me just give you now the example in this format here. So z is going to be equal to 4 plus 2i. So meaning this one here is a complex number. Now before we try to look at the addition, subtraction, and division of complex numbers, as well as multiplication of complex numbers, let me just show you something here. So let's say, for example, if you have been told to find root of +4. Actually this one is just very easy and is positive or -2. Then again, if I ask you to find root of -4, you're going to say it's undefined. So this is where now the idea of complex numbers comes in. So how are we going to apply complex numbers to find root of -4? So usually one thing that you need to understand here is that root of -1 is always the imaginary part, which is I. Root of -1 is always I. So meaning to say that if you have been told to find root of -4 here, just find the root of 4, which is 2. So you can say plus or minus, but here one thing that you need to understand here is that a complex number, since we don't want it to be a negative, it's going to be positive. So it's going to be 2, and since here we are having a negative, we are going to put I. In short, you can divide this root of -4 as root of -1 multiplied by root of 4. So you know to say that root of 4 is 2 and root of -1 is I. So if you multiply, you're going to have 2i. So that is the idea here. Now let's, for example, if you've been told to find what I to the power 2 is. So for us to know what I to the power 2 is, we're going to use this one here. So let me just introduce the squares on both sides. So if I introduce the squares on both sides here, I'm going to find that here I'm going to remain with -1, and here I'm going to have I squared, meaning to say that I squared is equal to -1. So if I give you to find 4i squared, so definitely this one is going to be 4 open bracket -1. Then if I multiply here, I'm going to get -4. So that is the idea here. Then apart from this one here, let me just do this. Let's say, for example, if we have so the first one is root of -1 is equal to I. Then the second one is root or I squared is equal to -1. Now what about I to the power 3? What is I to the power 3? So feel free to pause the video and find what I to the power 3 is. So actually here we are just building up from where we have started. So we have ended here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this I to the power 3 into I to the power 2 multiplied by I. We know to say that I to the power 2 is -1, then we need to multiply it with I. So meaning here we are going to get -I. So therefore number 3, we can say if you're having I to the power 3, this one is going to be equal to -I. So this one is very, very important. So let me just do this one. This one looks ugly. So it is -I. Then let's say, for example, if you have been told to find what I to the power 4 is, how can you go about this one? So simple. Just split this one into I to the power 2 multiplied by I to the power 2. So I to the power 2 is -1 and I to the power 2 is -1. If I multiply here, I'm going to get +1. So meaning to say that if you have I to the power 4, this one is going to be equal to +1. So this one is very, very important. So all these I'm going to apply them to answer the following questions that we are going to have.